All right, let's talk about our mechanisms for evolution. This is a huge piece of information that we need to make sure that we understand. And that is populations evolve, individuals do not. So a population is the absolute smallest unit of evolution. An individual itself does not evolve. Over time, changes in the gene pool cause an entire population to change and evolve, but an individual does not. Okay, so changing all of these environmental factors can select for specific phenotypes, but once again, individuals do not evolve, populations do. Okay, so let's look at this bird and beetle example. All right, so we've got some trees, all right, and notice that we've got two different colors of beetles. We've got two specific phenotypes for our beetles. So we've got brown beetles and green beetles. Now, the brown beetles are going to kind of blend into this back tree trunk area. All right, and the green beetles stand out pretty well. So very similar to what we talked about with the peppered moths, all right? So these birds are going to start eating all of these green beetles because those are the ones that are easily seen. Now these brown beetles are going to blend into the background, and then over time, they are going to pass down this brown beetle gene to their offspring to create an overall change in our gene pool. Now, this is an entire population of beetles. This is not an individual beetle changing. This green beetle is not going to turn brown just because it wants to blend in with this background, okay? So our brown beetles are the ones that are passing down their genes from parent to offspring. This image, and I would pause the video here, all right, is showing us that rabbits over time, all right, so we're seeing a random mutation. It's causing this faster rabbit. Now, over time, notice that our population is changing in terms of the phenotype itself because the faster rabbits are able to pass on their genes to their offspring and change the gene pool. Okay, so here's that definition that goes along with that. So mutations are causing random genes and changes in the DNA of an organism and variation in our population. So our original population did not have any type of variation in it, but we know in order for natural selection to occur that we have to have some type of variation within our population. Does the change affect the phenotype? Absolutely yes. All right, we're going to be looking at three different graphs of the types of natural selection. Okay, so we're going to use the same example for all of these. We're going to use, let's say, we've got some mice, okay? And these mice live in an area where the terrain is white and black, okay? So we've got these mice. We've got white mice. We've got like grayish tan mice, and we've got black mice. All right, with disruptive selection, the conditions are most favorable for both of the two extremes of the population. So this would be an instance where we have both black and white terrain for these mice to blend into. All right, so say we have like a rock, like a granite, okay? So these mice are going to be able to, the white mice are going to blend into the white areas of the rock. The black mice are going to blend into the black areas of rock. But these little tan mice right here, they're easily seen and therefore eaten very easily. Stabilizing selection would be when the conditions are most favorable for the average version of the phenotype. So say we have a terrain that's all sandy, so all tan. Now the white mice are going to stand out against the sand. The black mice are going to stand out against the sand, and so therefore they're going to be eaten very easily. The tan mice, however, are going to blend into the sand, and therefore that population is going to increase in that tan phenotype, and it's going to decrease in the white and the black phenotypes because those are the both of the extreme versions of that phenotype. Now, directional selection is going to select for one of the two extremes of the phenotype. So say the same thing with the mice, all right? So they do not live in a very snowy area. So the white mice are not going to blend in very well. The tan mice are not going to blend in very well. But the black mice are going to blend in extremely well to an area that is very, very dark. Therefore, selecting for the black mice population and selecting against the white mice and a little bit of the average phenotype as well. All right, so I want you to pause the slide here, and I want you to go ahead and answer these questions in your notes. All right, let's talk about speciation. So speciation is just defined as the development of a new species. So different species cannot interbreed. Let me emphasize this again. Different species cannot interbreed. Now, interbreeding, we're talking about creating fertile offspring. Now, we can have animals that can interbreed and not create fertile offspring, but different species cannot interbreed to create fertile offspring. An example of this would be that horses and donkeys can mate, and what they produce are mules. However, our mules are sterile. They cannot make more mules. So with speciation, different species cannot interbreed to produce fertile offspring. All right, so we've got a couple different things that affect speciation or the development of a new species. The first being geographic isolation. Now, this is when part of a population becomes separated by distance and then starts to accumulate different alleles. All right, so these changes eventually are going to lead to reproductive isolation and speciation. Reproductive isolation, exactly what it sounds like. The animals in that area can only reproduce within themselves. All right, so say we've got these two squirrels right here. All right, and they are separated by a canyon, okay? So maybe we have an earthquake or a chunk of an island kind of breaks off and starts to float away. Okay, so this is going to create a new species because of geographic isolation. That population becomes separated by the distance. And then over time, those animals on each side can only breed within themselves, animals or plants, I should say. And then what that's going to end up doing is leading to a new species being created. For example, continental drift. So think about the idea that Alfred Wegener proposed of the original, supercontinent Pangaea. All right. So over time, continents have moved and changed. All right. And what does that cause? It has caused speciation. It has caused new species to be formed because they cannot reproduce with the animals in the original area. All right. Migration. So animals going from one area to another, and river systems. All right, let's talk about the time frame for evolution. All right, so this is describing how quickly the new species may have formed based on the fossil records. This accumulation of changes in phenotypes over time can lead to the evolution of a new species. So we're looking at two different models, the gradualism model and the punctuated equilibrium model. So if something is happening to you gradually over time, what does that mean? So gradualism is exactly what that sounds like. All right, this is small changes. They're occurring constantly until a new species is formed. All right, so here's a nice little gradualism model. So we've got this moth here, and it's starting over time to slowly mutate into two different phenotypes. So notice this one's becoming a little more orange, and this one's got some spots and some points to the bottom wings of that particular moth. Okay, so over time, what we're doing is evolving into these two different species of moths. Punctuated equilibrium is a little different. So this is a long period of no change, and it's followed by a period of very rapid change. Okay, so this is something that's leading to a new species, for example, a natural disaster. Artificial selection, I love talking about this. I think it is so incredibly interesting. All right, so artificial selection is also known as selective breeding. So farmers and breeders will only allow plants and animals with desirable traits to reproduce. So if they do not have a desirable trait, they are not bred in order to prevent that trait from being passed down to the offspring. So for example, we've got corn, we've also got dogs. Okay, so let's look at corn first. All right, our original ancestors of the corn, this is what corn used to look like a way long time ago, okay? Now, if we were looking at natural corn, this is kind of what the ear of corn would look like. But we want corn that can be easily eaten. We want corn that is very hearty and very filling. All right, so we've got our intermediate species. This is, of course, the evolution of corn itself into the modern corn cob that we have today versus what the original ancient ancestors of corn would look like. Now, dogs, on the other hand, I love this picture because I've got two different species of dogs. I've got a species that has been selectively bred, and I've got another breed of dog that has not. So the one on the left, you can kind of see, this is my dog Moose, but he is looking a little more wolf-like, okay? So his traits have not been chosen for. He has not been artificially selected. However, on the right, my dog Cash is a purebred golden retriever. So over time, the traits of these dogs, so temperament, look, hip mobility, fur color, fur length, all right, all of these have been bred for in order to create this purebred dog. So all of these dogs that you see in the dog shows, those have all been selectively bred to show the traits that make that breed a specific look and design.